Good evening. I call to order this work session of the Morrisville Town Council for April 10th, 2025. We have one discussion item on our agenda tonight. It's budget work session, parks, cost recovery, revenues, and other special topics. I'll pass it right now to Brandon Zudemer, our town manager, to get us started.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you mentioned, tonight is really focused primarily around revenues. So we have this work session. Hello. And then we have, but for the public's information, we also have a second work session scheduled on the 24th. After those two, that will lead us to develop, and I'll present you with a recommended budget on May 13th. So the work session on the 24th will be primarily about revenues, and we may follow up with you a little bit about expenditures. Sorry, thank you for the look that I've lost my mind. For the expenditures, and then if we need to follow up on anything on revenues, we would do that at that point. We'll present on the 13th, and then on May 15th, there will be a public hearing, and there can be more discussion with council if you so choose at that point. All right.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm going to turn it over to Mary, our Parks and Rec Director, along with Cindy King, our Assistant Director, and Byron's just going to help drive, and if there's little questions he can help with, he's going to jump in. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight we are before you to continue the conversation of cost analysis. When we were before you in January, we presented you with a classification of service framework that comprised of 3 levels: basic, enhanced, and specialized. Tonight, we will present you with a final classification of service that has 4 levels. Click to the next slide. On the slide before you is a representation of those 4 classifications of services that I just mentioned. Primary has a target of 0%. Basic has a range of 1% to 14%. Enhanced, 15% to 50%. And specialized, 51% to 100+%. You will also be presented with program participation comparison numbers, comparing resident to non-resident. We will continue and include a deeper look in the Morrisville Senior Center participation, alternate revenue opportunities, and the makeup of the department's base budget through our operational ratio analysis. To continue this work, we need your support of the fee methodology approach. This table represents defined targets for each of the classification of service. This differs from the January presentation, where staff had recognized that we needed to give you more of a range to better route those classification of services. The reason for this is to capture amenities where leisure activity occurs. This level provides a resource for passive recreation. So this is at the primary, or where there's 0 fees level. Examples include greenways and play structures, or might be better known as playgrounds. We're presenting you with this model where all programming recoups the direct cost to operate the activity, program, or trip at the basic, enhanced, and specialized level. To give more context, staff will first evaluate the level of service. Basic, this is programming where the community benefits. Examples include open swim, special events, and senior programming. The enhanced level is where the majority of the program will be classified. This is where there is a community and an individual benefit. This is where most of our athletic programming will be bucketed, as well as pickleball lessons and swim lessons. And note, whenever you hear me say an individual benefit, it doesn't mean a single person, but moving from that wide lens of community where everybody could participate, it starts to narrow where it may not be an appeal. So youth athletics is an individual benefit because it doesn't also include adults and seniors. Next slide. At the top tier of the theme methodology, this is where we have our specialized programming, and this is where it is solely focused on that unique programming that appeals to that individual base. Examples include Ready, Set, Go, summer camp, rentals, and athletic clinics. So not to repeat what I just said as you're looking at this slide, but you'll just take it in as a graphic. Again, the base is primary. Examples include greenways, play systems, walking tracks. Just to level set, the walking track is at Northwest Park and then also at Church Street Park around the cricket grounds. Basic programming examples, the Seniors Witches Tea, the Senior Holiday Luncheon, Open Swim. Enhanced programming, as I mentioned, pickleball lessons. I talked about athletic programming, so volleyball, swim lessons. And then again, when we get to that specialized tier, Ready, Set, Go for our preschool age participants and summer camp. Staff has heard your request to apply a subsidy component for senior programming. The next slide demonstrates the difference between applying the classification of service fee methodology as compared to providing a subsidy. Before you on the slide is the Seniors Witches Tea. Staff has positioned senior programming in response to council's request at the basic service level. In the example on the screen, the fees are established at the base and it's dependent upon the minimum number of participants to run the program. And this is important to keep in mind. So this is behind the scenes. Whenever staff is applying this fee methodology, they have to first identify what is the minimal number of participants that then scale with the fee. So this slide outlines the Witches Tea. Prior to council's request to lower the cost for the Witches Tea, the program fees were set following the classification of service at the enhanced level. So again, just keep in mind where we were at the enhanced level is that not all seniors were going to be able to come to the Witches Tea. Once we heard the desires of council to keep senior fees lower, we moved that into the basic tier level. This results in a 32% subsidy for this program. Whenever we were building this fee, the minimum number of participants was at 10. So then if you move and you look at the right side of the slide, while in contrast, the example on the right side, the minimum number of participants moved to 20. It increased. Again, I said that's important because your minimum number of participants means that is the number at which the program will make. If you don't achieve that number, you're going to not execute the program. So as we have started trying to apply some early preliminary approaches to the fee methodology, we have kept our minimum number of participants low. This helps us give the opportunity for the program to be successful, and then we can scale later to increase fees. The minimum number is impactful because the minimum number results in the percent above base producing the revenue. It's also important to recognize that by increasing the number of participants, that the program would not run if we did not meet that target, as I had already mentioned. So just to talk through a little bit of the numbers on the screen, when you're looking at on the right side where it says 9% above base, if you could back up, Byron, and go to 2 slides where it showed the target. I want to try to keep up with you all hearing what I'm asking of you. So on this screen, where you see the targets on the right-hand side, primary, no affiliated fees. So there's no percent above the base. Or another way to think about that is the expenditure to revenue percentage. So what percentage are we trying to bring in revenue-wise above base? Another way of thinking about base is the balance of the in and out to run the program. So for basic, what we are providing for you to react to is 10%. Would be our above our direct cost or above our baseline for the expense to revenue percentage applied to then create the fees. For enhanced, that would be 30% above that direct cost or the base. And then for specialized, that would be 51%. And we can, come back to that once I get through all the slides. As we advance to slide 6, this is an example of pickleball. Where we were this fall, where we are currently, is we had applied a 30% above the base percentage or target. So where you're looking at pickleball and you see that it comes up to be 49% above the base, it's nearing the top of the classification of service for being enhanced. Pickleball very well could be moved into specialized programming versus staying in enhanced. So if you go back to the definition, enhanced is a balanced participation opportunity between the community and the individuals. However, we took a survey of the room, we may see a small portion of the room who are interested in pickleball. Therefore, that's why pickleball probably fits better as a specialized program. So, talking you through this a little bit more with the 30% rooting this example on the right-hand part of the slide, you'll see where we ran the market rate comparisons, we did the expenditures, and we did the revenue, and then the percent of expenditures to revenue above the base. And that came out to be 49%. Also, I'd just like to remind you that we asked staff to look at market rate comparisons within the county. They can select the municipalities that they're comparing them to, and then they may have to look outside of the county if it's a specialized program, because apples to apples is what we're trying to get to. So that's where you're going to see some variances in who the market rate comparisons are for each of these programs. So whenever we are trying to give this mirror example of where we are currently with using that 30% target, and then if we were to move to this enhanced version, and it doesn't necessarily, it's at the top, if we were then to move to specialized, the target for specialized is 51%. So we're only 2% above base if this was to move to pickleball. So I put on here no increase for proposed. The reason why I said no increase is go and look at the number of participants. The minimum number of participants used to calculate these fees was 4. This was our first time ever trying pickleball. We had a very low minimum because we wanted it to make. You know, we heard that pickleball is all the rave, but it may not be all the rave for our community. So at the iteration of trying a new program, keeping that minimum number of participant low helps with the success of getting the program off the ground. So whenever you compute, we've had 7, and that is just in one session of the pickleball lesson. It's not all of our pickleball lessons combined. So if you had approved this and fast forward, we're 3 months and we're reevaluating pickleball after the spring sessions, we're looking to the fall. Because it's only had 2 seasons of sessions, mine and Cindy's recommendation would be to keep it in that enhanced category before then taking the price up again, continuing to let it mature and have some opportunity of success behind it. I will also give a caveat, there is always the opportunity to decrease as well. Next slide. This slide is an example of our specialized.
Are you taking questions now or later?
Questions at the end, if possible. Is that okay?
Well, some of this, I have questions, but if you wait till the end, I'm just gonna continue getting more lost and more lost.
Well,
And none of it is gonna make any sense.
let me get through the end of the presentation because I may address one of your questions as I'm getting more into the presentation versus getting questions and then backtracking. Okay.
Because I have a very basic
That you're tracking?
base.
Yes.
Tell me again, is that where we break even?
Yes.
Okay. So
Let me add of direct cost. So that's where it's listed on the sheet, staff or supplies. So it does not have utilities and full-time staff included. We don't depreciate the equipment that's used for the program. It's just the program's direct cost.
okay, so I don't, on this slide, I don't go the, which is T,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the relevance between these 2 examples. So it looks like the first time, these were actual costs.
I'm so sorry, Councilmember Fender. Can you turn your mic on for me, please?
Okay. Looks like this past October, we lost money.
We subsidize the program.
All right. Okay. Subsidize. So then what is the relevance to what you have on the right side?
That if we were to apply the basic structure, and it shows where we'll be able to recoup above base, and then we would not be subsidizing the program.
And in these examples, you're not showing what your minimum.
You're correct.
And so then that's not on here. And then so then I'm wondering, but you do differentiate between residents and non-residents, but you're not talking about how that factors into the calculation.
So the resident and non-resident doesn't factor into the calculation on the start. We start with the minimum number of participation from our direct costs, and then applying that target, that computes the resident and the non-resident rate.
Okay.
And I apologize. I tried to balance what took us too far into the weeds and then what gave you enough information, and then just trying to respond, as you're saying, like level set and making sure everyone's on the same page. Okay.
All right, so let's go Mayor Pro Tem Garamel. Okay, all right, Councilmember Abadi, and then. Okay. What do y'all got?
Y'all are very nice tonight. I was just wondering if, similar to Councilmember Fender about the number of participants in a program and how resident versus non-resident kind of factors into that, because we're talking about cost recovery. And don't answer, you don't have to have the answer right now. But, this is a question that I've had is like, I understand that to me, like senior programming is an exception because it's more than just the dollars or pounds or euros. It's about the level of engagement. To me, success is having too many people at the holiday dinner because they all want to see each other and they're all excited. Success is having a witch's tea of a half a dozen people that want to have a networking opportunity. So having a number is helpful to them as well, saying we need a minimum of 6 because they will self-recruit, because it's about networking, not about cost, and we need to keep the costs low. So just understanding a little bit more about minimum number of participants in the programming guide might be helpful, and it might be helpful for me to understand how this formula is being derived as well. Okay. So you don't have to answer. It's just giving you a little bit of input as I'm seeing the formula and kind of understanding that.
And we use ActiveNet as our registration platform. And honestly, I haven't registered for one of our programs, but correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy. In ActiveNet, it shows you the number of spots available. Yeah. So the participants know that whenever they go in to register. Yep.
So I think I might have actually the opposite question, which is, it seems like honestly, to nickel and dime seniors for programs that cost us $166. My question.
Excuse me, sorry. Councilmember, will you turn your mic on?
Damn it. Okay. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So I have the opposite question. Wait, to nickel and dime seniors for a program that costs us $166 to put on, is there or could there be some type of minimum, like a level of expenditure that we have to get to? Like once a program is costing us $300, then we start kicking in with some revenue recovery. Because I don't want to see seniors not participate in an event, and the thing is, you say like $5 to $8, it's only $3, but in fact it's 75% increase in the cost.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering, why are we talking about this for a program that costs us $166 to run?
Great question. So it's the approach for setting fees from a Parks and Recreation model or methodology. So to answer your question, based on the desires and the consensus of the council, is if the wishes is for the fees for seniors to go in a different direction from the fee methodology where I'm presenting you targets at the 10%, the 30%, and the 51%, there could be an opportunity for seniors that says, we are only recouping the base. So then we're applying no target above the base. Or we can even say from the base, we want to subsidize programming 25%. So then we're only going to recoup or recover 75% of the direct cost.
Or X percentage.
Yeah, so we can go above where we're clearing what it costs to put on the program, or we can go where we're also subsidizing. So yes, this program has low expenditures. We're also trying to increase the number of programs that we're offering. And so we wanted to provide you all with, in our current program guide for the summer, which is May through September, there are 25 programs where there is a fee. What was that saying?
There's 16 free ongoing programs every week. So there's 16 free programs. And throughout the program guide.
I'm so sorry, lady. Can you?
They turned mine on. So there's 16 free ongoing programs each week, and that's through this guide. And then there's 25 like one-off free programs throughout May through September. So there's a plethora of free programs offered for the seniors already.
Are they all fitness?
They are not.
That's like celebrating the senior day, we applied a fee, then we had to roll that back to free. Is that still free?
That is going to be free, correct. Yep.
And I'm done after I say one more thing, which is I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to have the exact same objection on the next slide that you're going to come to after the pickleball one, because between the actual and the proposed for the Ready, Set, Go, that's for the 3-year-olds, right? Or
3 or 4.
yeah. So the proposed fee increase for that is $380 for residents and $620 for non-residents. And to me, that is a wallop. Like, I'm just saying this for myself. Anybody's free to disagree with me, but to me, we have got to do better than that. Like, I don't even see how we can talk about increasing fees for families with young kids by $380 all at once. So I'm just giving you a heads up that on slide 7, I'm going to have the exact same objection. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'll go. Couple of things in my observation is last time Marietta asked how much is the entire cost of those programmings. Do you have that? Like the entire senior, is it like 15,000 total, 20,000?
We do not have that tonight, but we can get that.
Yeah, I think last time I asked that
Okay,
because
I
that is important to figure out what we are looking at, And I had seen one chart, but the conversation is relevant, where we have more non-residents than the residents in the senior center, correct? So can we pull that
For a
chart?
class. For a class.
Yeah, for class. Is that paid or unpaid?
For the line dancing class?
Mhm.
No, I haven't gotten to that one yet. Do you want to go to that now?
Yeah, I just want to see that so that,
Okay.
the council can understand.
That is slide 8.
Not this one. Next one. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So if you look at this one, it shows 34.1% residents and non-residents are 65, and which is fine. The key for me here, if we are putting at that 40%, right, to the non-residents, which means that 40% of the 65.9% is automatically subsidizing the program for the residents. And the delta should not be a whole lot. because certain areas, I agree with Ann, where with the, like the kids programming or like summer camp, people have a hard time. So here we're already getting a very good subsidy in how I look it up, right? Because the non-residents are pseudo subsidizing the residents, and if we can have somewhere where we can, if that is only 40%, I want to know how much it is, so that we can either charge or not charge. That is okay, but also I would like to see somewhere they're all fixed income people, right? So they don't basically, so if we can program like, okay, a person A, like say, I want to join, over the span of 12 months, you may have to calculate whatever it is a little bit, and then you can say $120, $10 for the entire year, but it will all work it out that it's a constant pay. So that it goes into their fixed income kind of a thing. So that shows a commitment for them also into it.
So that I'm hearing you correctly, are you suggesting an opportunity for discussion is that there would only be a fee assessed to residents and it would be a one-time, or excuse me, non-residents, and it would be a one-time fee for the year? So the programming would have no cost, but essentially it would be like a membership.
Yeah, membership. Yeah.
And then it would just be to non-residents.
Yeah, and non-residents have to pay whatever it is. Okay. Because the idea is to, other areas I can understand, like the programming, but seniors and camps and all those things, it's livelihood. Like, I agree with Ann, if I had to pay $600 for a kid for a week, it is hard. The only reason we are successful because the entire West Cary does not have their community center, and we get a lot of people from there.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I feel those two areas, if it can be looked, I think that would help a lot. And again, if it is 15, 20,000, I want that number so that we can make addition and put this to rest.
Okay.
And the last question here on the pickleball, are we getting like the top pros that they are charging us so much compared to Rally and others?
Are you saying to teach the class or to?
No. I'm talking about the pickleball cost.
Yes. What is your question?
Why are we? I'm just taking that as an example. Like, for example, pickleball is $55 for resident and $83 for non-residents. Rally and other places are $40 and $55, $44. Kind of YMCA is also $40. So why that $15? Are we getting like top of the rank people coming and teaching, or why are we increasing it? What is that special that we are getting out of? Yeah, exactly.
So this one, it was not comparative for the duration of time of the sessions. It wasn't an apples to apples. So whenever we were working with the staff on what we were presenting, 5 weeks, remind me of the week-long sessions.
It was originally 7 weeks, and then we switched it down to 6.
Okay.
So then let me be very clear. So you're telling this is not per class. This is per 6 classes?
For 6 classes.
Okay, that
Yeah.
needs to be put down there, please. Like I was thinking that tennis pros, they charge,
No,
$75,
per-
$80. I was thinking, why would I charge $83 as class?
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah.
And the staff takes 182. Is it like contracted staff or our staff?
That's our staff.
So why are we charging staff? Because as part of the recovery, our personnel is not an expense.
So we are putting our part-time staff, not the full-time staff.
Okay,
Because we would not
so
have
I would,
that
I would,
person.
yeah, I would then, but also like, okay, part-time, only specific for this.
Yeah, because if we did not have the pickleball lessons, we would not have that individual on our roster. So
Okay.
that's part of the direct cost of that program.
Okay, then I would be careful if we put staff there because, like, for me,
Maybe
the staff,
part-time instructor.
yeah, like
Okay.
specific for that. Okay,
Okay. Makes sense.
that's all.
Councilmember Jones.
Okay, so I just want to clarify a couple of things. We've used the word base, and then I see the word basic. Are those the same thing?
No.
Okay, so then I need an explanation on that again. Because
Yeah, yeah.
I kept hearing it, and I'm going, and I want to be clear.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson, can you turn your mic on for me, please? Thank you.
Okay, let me ask again. Picked up. I just want to make sure I have an explanation of what base is and what basic is, and make sure we're all using them correctly.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so on the slide behind me are the classifications of service. So classification of service, primary, basic, enhanced, and specialized. Then when we move into the model for fee methodology, and we're starting from the base of the expenses and then going above the base. So we could also say the total of direct cost equals the base.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I like the word direct cost better than base, quite frankly, but that's me.
okay.
That's me. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. Okay, and then another thing I just need to clarify so that I understand that I just heard correctly or I misheard. My mistake. So on the pickleball lesson slide, when we talk about 4 residents and 3 non-residents, are you telling me that's the minimum? Because you talked about minimum, that you need a minimum for a program. So yeah, I need to understand what that means too.
So again, in the fee creation calculation for this program for a pickleball lesson, one session, is 4.
4 people. It doesn't matter if they're residents or non-residents.
Right. So then the result of that one session that we used as an example had 7 participants.
Okay, so this is actual, what you
Yes.
have up here.
Yes.
Got it. But you're, okay, so somewhere, because I don't see that on this slide, somewhere you know that you want to have 4 people, otherwise you're not going to have the program.
Right.
Okay, and so that, are you going to, so I'm clear. You're going to do that for every program in the whole, so I'm having a little bit of heartburn over that because I guess I want to know what those numbers are, because some programs are worthy, potentially, even if they have low numbers. Now, 4 sounds like a low number. If you're telling me everything we do, we want to have at least 4 participants, I'm like, I'm on board. That makes sense. But I have a feeling that's not what it is. So,
So let's talk about, we have we're in conversation about a mother-daughter tea. Have y'all
Okay.
started working on, what'd you put for the minimum on that one?
It's 12.
12. So it also is like the room capacity, how much is what are the supplies that's going into it?
Market rate comparison.
so cut to the chase. I get all that. I do understand that. I guess what I'm worried about, because that's a great example, that's a new program. So it's got to grow. And if you cut it off at its knees in the first go round because you can get 12, it'll never grow. We'll never know. It'll never catch on. It'll never. So how are you going to handle that?
So that would be one that, let's say we get 8. I'm probably going to go ahead and say, staff, go ahead and do that program, because that's one that we feel like that we can grow. Kids Night Out is a great example. I think our minimum was 10. They did it with, I think, 6 the first time. So that is common in Parks and Rec, that we try that program. We may have put that minimum a little high to keep that cost down, that methodology that we're working with. But we're going to go ahead and do that program. We're going to go in the negative for it on the expense.
And I think that's okay.
Yes.
If you need okay, ask, because I think that's okay. And so that's what I want to hear.
We already do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And then we do an after-action evaluation. We talk about what can we do different, where can we market, all of that.
That's right. And if by year 3 it hasn't caught on, then you cut it off, because then now it's a losing. Nobody cares.
Then we're doing like a SWOT analysis.
Yeah,
Is the return on the investment
That's right.
worth it?
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Is this cost recovery normal across?
Thank you.
So is this cost recovery normal all across all the place? Because 10 years from last year, I'm only listening for the first time about this whole cost recovery thing. So I just wanted to be honest, that was kind of makes sense, from a business point of view. But is it norm? All the cities do this way, or how does it work? Because because for me, when it's Parks and Recs, it's an investment for the people to come and live. Okay, and I get that there's a cost, but I just wanted to know because I don't.
It does vary from community to community. It also is the directive of the council. And every municipality's council is different with their directives and their expectations and vision. And so what we are trying to do is receive support from you all with our fee creation that then drives that cost recovery and revenue target expectations.
Didn't you mention the first time you started presenting this to us, you opened it up saying, we're going to try to do this method?
Yep.
And it was something new.
So we will get to a slide here shortly that has some cost recovery numbers visually presented differently than what I did in the last one, still the same numbers. So to get to the cost recovery, we have to have the fee construct in order to direct staff how they are approaching new programming. And that's where we are, is at a crossroads to where we have capacity for new programming. And so in order to move forward with the new programming, we need to have that methodology to direct staff so that they know how to develop the fees. Now, that does not take us out of the conversation. It just allows them some autonomy whenever they're vetting their different programs to source one program versus another.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are we good on this slide? Can we advance to the next one, or do we need to talk to this slide? Let's advance to number 9. I was excited whenever staff was able to pull this numbers, and thank you for your patience. I will just say that first I want to extend the gratitude to staff who have stepped up to the call of searching out data. You all may not have had data presented to you in the past, and part of that is they were underutilizing our ActiveNet platform. And so with the approval and the enhancement of the staff, we have more resources now to help support those to where data analysis may not be their area of expertise. They can program all day long, be creative, but the data analysis side had opportunities for improvement. So there is more to come as we continue forward. So before you is some data numbers on the senior center, where there was an evaluation looking at FY24, and then with FY25, we had actual numbers for the first 9 months, and then we projected through the end of the year. So we are estimating a little bit of a difference between FY24 and FY25. FY24, we were using Sign Up Genius. Now you all know we've moved to ActiveNet, so we feel like we have a better data resource than what we had with Sign Up Genius. However, you can still see that the number of unique visits is low. We have opportunity to increase there of our door turns, and we do see more non-residents coming through the door than residents. I'll pause here just to see if there's any questions. Are you moderating?
We'll start with Councilmember Abadi.
So what exactly does the total participation number mean? Does that mean number of people times program times
Every time they
occurrence?
come.
Okay, so total for the past 6 months, or the past year, total 9,553 unique people walked through the door to do something.
Not unique, that's cumulative, and it's estimated. So if you want to know the actuals for the first 9 months from July through March, actual is just over 7,000.
No, what I want to know is where exactly that number comes from. What are
Every
you
time
exactly
someone comes-
multiplying? Okay,
So if you come Monday, you come Wednesday, you come Friday, that's 3.
okay, even if you're doing the same thing, so, okay, all right. And then the total individual visits is 532, which means 532 people each came 18 times to make up 9,000 people.
Correct.
Okay.
So with individual, that's where the term unique, where we only had the 532 individuals. But then, like you said, it's a multiplier for the 9,553.
Okay, and of that 532, 189 were residents, 343 were non-residents.
Correct.
I feel like, I love that these slides are way more pictures than text. Really good job. I feel like maybe we might have over-rotated a little bit. It just I could use a little bit more explanation of the calculations,
Yep.
but not to go back to slides with 47 bullet points, but like, this is great, but just maybe like a little
key?
legend or something, yeah,
Okay.
would be really helpful. Thank you.
I have to say this, otherwise I won't be allowed back in the senior center. The ActiveNet software is very unfriendly. It is very difficult to use, and even I think it's a pain. It is not. I would rather we all went back to Sign Up Genius, quite frankly, and I think I'm talking for a lot of folks that use the senior center. So, I say that, number one, because I hear that all the time, and I'm sure that came across in the senior survey information. And if it didn't, I'd be surprised. I haven't seen that data yet, which I'm looking forward to seeing. But so that's number one. Number two, tell me how exactly you pulled these numbers. And I'll tell you why I'm asking, because I know, because I attend a lot of the programming at the senior center, I know there are 30 people that'll sign up for a program, and I count every time I'm there, and there'll be 16 to 19 of us. So they don't all show up. So where are these numbers coming from?
I'm going to let Cindy answer that question. She worked with staff on these numbers.
It is definitely from registration numbers.
Yeah.
That's what we base our data on. If we were doing checks and balances, it'd be a lot of sheets of paper. So it is definitely on registration. And we know that there are a lot that's not showing up. We're trying to rectify that in a different, we're still going to be using ActiveNet right now. But we're going to possibly be shifting our registration every 2 weeks out rather than people signing up for the whole program guide cycle.
Yes.
So we actually met on that today, so that's coming.
And so I'm going to add this too. There are people that show up that don't even sign up, because we are all used to the fact that the system, this software we're using, is so unfriendly and not helpful, and people sign up and then don't come. People just show up and enter the class. So we're not counting them either. So this data is really inaccurate, quite frankly. The percentage of residents versus non-residents, I'm sure that's correct. That's what I see and feel. Of course, I don't have the data, but I'm sure that's probably more accurate. But the number of visits and who's visiting, the other problem with the ActiveNet software is you can't unsign up. You can't. Well, then that's not. I've been told I can't do that. That I have to ask. I have to call and tell somebody. So I think we need to get really clear on what we're doing, and make sure folks understand. And anyhow,
Okay.
that's just my 2 cents on the software and the data that we're collecting.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Councilmember Fender and then the mayor.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment because it was confusing at first. And let me make sure I understand what you said here. The first title that says total participation, to me, that equates to, the way you explained it, total visits. Total, Okay. And then down here where you say total individual visits, to me, based on what you described, that means really total individual people, not visits.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Okay. Well, and so lastly, I mean, what Councilmember Johnson has brought up based on what she has actually observed, that's a really good point, because if the data isn't right, then if we're using it to make decisions, we're not going to make good decisions. So that's all I got. Sorry. I didn't mean that as something critical. I meant it just.
You want to have your repository of your data to be solidified.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's alarming that based on what she's observed, these numbers aren't necessarily accurate. I mean,
as Cindy alluded to, in order to pull data, we go to our platform where the registration is housed. And we just transitioned, I believe it was August, September, to move the programming over to ActiveNet. So we are experiencing growing pains. And so we are understanding that it's not perfect and that we want people to participate. So we don't want to be, adverse of saying, oh, you didn't sign up. We need to figure out how to meet the seniors that will best be accommodating to them for participation. So it's not frustrating. It's not, not known that you can pull yourself out. And so it sounds like today there were some possible solutions that were being discussed with the senior manager and Cindy, and working through that is a must.
I'll, if you don't mind, if I can just jump in really quickly as well. I do just want to point out that part of this is that as we're going through this year, this is a bit of a level setting year. The department itself is relatively new to data collection and data analysis. And so a lot of what it is that we're doing is trying to set that baseline. And so part of setting that baseline is also finding the pitfalls and finding the incorrect use of certain data points or the improper application of certain data points. And so part of this really is we're trying to go through, make sure that we give you all the best data that we can, but we're trying to learn exactly what some of these software systems are outputting and be able to kind of tailor that to be able to better provide you with the information that you're ultimately looking for. So while I understand that there are some pitfalls, there are some inaccuracies here, we are working to clean some of that up.
I think, to be fair for your side, it's almost impossible to, like, for example, the occupancy rate is 200 people here. You can only have 200 people. If only 10 people are showing, that is not your fault. It is they have blocked it. But, until unless you want to go critical that the same people, 190 people not showing up, continuously, then you say, hey, we have a problem. But I think you can, until unless you want to do a different way of tracking how much, original versus this, I think this is a number. It's, to be fair, there's not a trackable way to other than manually counting it.
Not a problem. So I guess a quick question. Are you supposed to sign up for bingo on ActiveNet? Okay, because me and my dad never did. So we're not in there. One resident, one non-resident. So, it's a building year. So we're going to figure out the data. I'd love to get IT in on this and just count anonymously people entering, leaving. We wouldn't catch resident, non-resident, but that's the way that you don't have to write down how many people were there, for example. Yeah, like the people counters.
Yeah.
So that could be good. So when I was first reading this presentation and we were talking about cost recovery, I always thought those percentages were of our base costs, not above base costs.
Okay.
So that's just a philosophical thing. In my opinion, our Parks and Rec department is not there to make money or to really recover. Taxpayers are paying for the opportunity to do all these things. So that's a little bit different. I'd be curious to know how different it would be if we're only recovering 50% of our specialized rather than collecting 150% of it. To Mayor Pro Tem's point, how much would that be? How much would we be supporting and subsidizing our residents who we want to have be active?
So one thing I do want to point out is that that base number is supposed to be of direct costs. So
Right.
all of our indirect costs are not factored in there.
All the
So
overhead.
we are
Mhm.
already subsidizing a fair amount of these programs just based on the fact that we aren't trying to count, rental costs,
Lights.
utilities, full-time staff.
Heating the pool.
Right.
Yep.
Cleaning the pool, exactly. Capital improvements that happen at these facilities, none of those are necessarily captured in the direct costs. So there is a level of subsidy that does naturally exist, and that is something that if we need to go back and kind of further clarify, we certainly can. But ultimately, this is meant to try and capture a base number of direct costs, not of the total cost.
Right.
So
Yeah,
this-
totally understand that.
And then if you go back to the target of what we're asking you to respond to is 10% of basic, 30% of enhanced, and 51% of specialized. That is a percent that's also correlated to capturing that indirect cost. So if you wanted to respond and potentially as a group say, first year out of the gate, not 10%, let's go 5%. Not 30%, let's go 25%. Not 51%, let's go 45%. That is what we're asking you all to respond to. So you have that opportunity.
Okay, and pretty much get out of the weeds as much as possible. Let this be an operational decision, because generally in the past, you just put it in the back of the budget.
Yep.
We look through those pages, we're like, yes, that's right. So we really appreciate you guys going to all this work to help us be more educated
Sure.
about all of this and to give us the opportunity once again to sort of chime in at that high level, because I think that's where we belong.
I am sorry, I'm not sure who was first, so we'll just go right to left down the line. Councilmember O'Bonnell. Oh, are you not on? Okay.
So I actually find it somewhat concerning that people can just
Is your mic on?
thank you.
It's a problem tonight.
What am I doing?
I do.
But I'm
I'll
not
make sure I
looking at
print
her.
out
A
one.
sign is not going to help me.
Card.
He needs a sign. So I actually kind of find it concerning that people can walk into a program that other people have paid for and just be there. Is there?
No,
Okay, so.
The free ones,
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That I don't care about.
yeah.
except for bingo, you pay when you get there, but the other
It's
ones,
a-
it's a pay, yeah.
Is it internet?
So Ann, I put my thing back up to say, I think adding to this is the fact that they're free.
Yeah.
You can sign up for free, you don't pay anything, and then you just don't show up because,
And the reason is we're trying to capture that data.
yeah.
And I also just want to mention that I understand that some of the
Or-
seniors may be having issues with the ActiveNet program.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you that I really like it. I mean, I've signed up for a number of, like I said, for pickleball lessons twice, and I've signed up for other stuff.
You poor thing.
Here, you're in charge of this now. I just wanted to tell you that I really like the ActiveNet. I understand that some of the seniors are having problems with it, and maybe that's something we could have staff help them with on a more regular basis. But I really like it, and I think that it does enable us to capture way better data than Sign Up Genius for sure.
It gives us the
But-
resident, non-resident.
Yeah, and so I just, whether we have to like station somebody there to help them out and help them understand it or do some classes or whatever, but I do think that the benefits of the ActiveNet software are substantial. So whatever we have to do to help people get on board, I think we should do it. Thank you.
So I agree, Ann. I think there's a real distinction though. Yes. There's a real distinction. The way this, I want to be clear, it's not the seniors that are at the issue. It's the fact that what you sign up for and what others sign up for through our program, like pickleball classes, those are a set classes for a set period of time. This is weekly classes that go on week after week, multiple times a week, that we all sign up for whenever it fits our calendar. And then there are issues with, again, because it's free and oh, I can't go that day. I've done it myself. I can't go that day. I didn't show up. And then other people, oh, I can go this day. I'm going to show up because there's always space because not everybody comes. So it's a very different dynamic than the rest of Parks and Rec and the other programming that we have that folks pay for sessions or classes or whatever. It's very different. No.
Out and other people feel free to show up, isn't that fine?
Other people don't show up because it's full.
Okay.
Well,
All
so,
right.
yeah, right. So that is the problem. Some people looking and it says, full. I will tell you my husband's one, he goes, it's full. I know it's really not full. I'm going anyhow. And it works. It works every time. There's always a spot. So that's what I'm saying. Like the numbers are not right. They're not accurate. I don't know what's real. So if we need to find a better way to track in this particular case, because it's a different dynamic here. It's not the seniors. It's a different dynamic and a different way of programming. I have to stand up for my people.
Well, and to that point, staff has recognized that and are decreasing the duration of classes that can be pre-registered.
And I think that's
gonna help.
smart. I've heard that feedback from folks too. They think that's smart too.
Yeah.
My mic is on.
Okay, just checking.
I'm just saying.
Is that all you had?
Oh, you wish, but no. At risk of getting down in the weeds, but I'd like to make another observation about the spontaneous joiners at the senior center. It might be helpful if, and I haven't attended some of the classes, so they might already do this, if one of the part-time staff is a greeter and checks off who's there, and then if someone says, oh, I forgot to register, say, well, we will register you, and that will be a cognitive reminder that you have to be registered to participate. And that kind of reinforces, because if they just join in and they're there and they don't even realize that they had to register, we're not going to get the data. So this is about gathering the best data we can, improving that, and if we could, not just the 2-week cycle is a great idea, but we need to be more rigorous in the accounting of the individuals, kind of like schools do. Are you here today or not? And if there are participants not showing up, maybe a little reminder, we missed you. And so that they realize that, the class was full and we missed you. We could try to improve that information for everyone to help with that decision making, for your planning of your programming, your space planning. I really think that small little add of attendance makes people accountable, even for a free event. So, thank you.
Do you know when you come, do they do a checklist? I know we used to with Sign Up Genius.
There's a printed list, and you're
Okay.
supposed to check your name next to it. But sometimes you do it, some people do it, some people. Actually, most people are pretty good about checking their name.
Yeah,
But if you're a joiner that didn't sign up, you're just going to keep going.
I think the staff, and I will double check this, I think the staff do take that list and go in and remove the people and then add the people back on. So it's probably closer than what we think.
Well, that's why I asked
Yeah.
15 minutes ago,
Yeah.
how did you pull this information?
Yeah,
So,
and I'll confirm that.
okay.
Yeah.
Mayor.
So at
Thank you.
St. Patrick's Day, there was someone, staffer, checking everybody off. But why don't you guys bring us back up? So we don't need to solve that. You guys are aware of the issue and you will address it. So what are the questions that you want to bring us up about? You want us to approve some percentages? Are we to that point? Bring us home on this
So let's
portion.
advance to slide 11.
Okay.
So then, part of the other kind of requests from you all after the January presentation is what other alternative revenue opportunities are there other than just program fees? So this slide represents that. It comes in the form of rentals. It also comes in the daily admittance to MAFC, and then our shelter rentals. Then what are some opportunities looking forward? Potentially FY '26 or beyond, that is to charge for our vendors with our special events, to continue with our merchandise sales, i.e. t-shirts, possibly other items in the future. Potentially exploring a membership fee for non-residents at the senior center. And then, of course, a big opportunity is sponsorship and naming rights. Then you also, as we advance to the next slide, ask, well, how do we serve our entire community? What opportunities is there for subsidies or some sort of scholarship program? I'm going to let Cindy talk through this program as she has had some touch points with it.
So as you all may or may not have heard of Dorcas Ministries, located in Cary, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization that serves the Morrisville and Cary community by providing financial and food assistance as well as community resources. Cary Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources has a program called Play It Forward. It's a partnership with Dorcas Ministries, and it provides a needs-based opportunity for residents to apply for discounted programs offered by the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department. We met with the Parks and Recreation team that oversees this Play It Forward and kind of helps with the scholarship and ask lots of questions. Basically, it's a subsidy for program participation, all ages. Like I said, Dorcas Ministries is a key component of this. Let's say I'm in need. I go to Dorcas Ministries, I fill out an application, and they take all my financials. So they're taking the legwork off of staff to look at financials, water bills, just, tax forms and things like that. So when I, as a customer, go into Dorcas Ministries, they take all my paperwork, and then they decide on the eligibility for my subsidy, which ranges anywhere from 25 to 95% of the program cost. And then as we talked to, I think John had talked to Dorcas Ministries, and they said that they would charge us $30 per application. So depending on, the number of people that go into Dorcas Ministries, they'll have our program guides talk about this opportunity for those people, seeking assistance. And based on the application, we would pay Dorcas Ministries to help us walk through this program.
Who would pay the subsidy?
It would come out of our costs. It's a discount. So I might get, I may decide that, or I may get $300 for one child. So based on that $300, the way it worked in Cary, we would put the money into the person's account. So the $300 would go into their ActiveNet account, and then they would register for those programs. So I might only take one or two programs based on that $300.
Councilmember Ralph first, and then Councilmember Fender.
Could you go back to the alternative revenue? Well, I want to thank Dorcas Ministries for that. I think it's great, and to the extent we can continue to collaborate. In terms of alternative revenue opportunities, I was curious as to whether maybe it's already included in these items, but like our camp programs, our summer camps, our year-round camps. Now, I know we're challenged with lack of facility space, but I think that's important for council and the town to know the potential market opportunity out there for, programs. I mean, and that's just something I think we should consider, and it would help us when we look at our CIP in terms of, if we had a larger center where we could do more camps, more year-round camps for the year-round school system. I think with pickleball as well, I've noticed that we're kind of limited with, the other question I had at the end of the presentation is just, where we are with in-house versus moving programs, from contract to back, and whether we could get data about, with our tennis and pickleball programs, where the revenue would increase if we brought it in-house. But I think with pickleball, for example, like, just last week there was the pro pickleball tournament in Cary, and I think it brought in $3.5 million into the town of Cary. Now, of course, they have a huge facility, but if we had more courts and we brought in more clinics, we could do, more programs that bring in more revenue. So, but we only have, the MAFC, the tennis courts that they turn to pickleball, and then we only have, how many pickleball courts do we have at a community park?
3.
Yeah, so, I mean.
But there
yeah.
may be an opportunity with cricket, if we look at our assets of what is unique to Morrisville versus other communities, the opportunity for revenue generating may be in line with cricket versus going towards pickleball because
Yeah.
of limiting with the
Yeah,
facility.
but I just think looking at like, what I'd be curious about data point is like, that's a great point. I mean, with, cricket, the unique something, like, where are the revenue sources that towns are getting from the different sports? And then how can we have our own revenue stream, something unique and different that enables us to, bring in the revenue. So, and then with the camp thing, that would just be something interesting for us, for me to see.
Councilmember Fender and then Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
I guess a couple of things now. So I really like the idea of looking at the opportunity of providing more summer camps. As a working mom, I was all about needing those camps, and there's a lot of good ones around here too, thankfully. But I wanted, on the next slide, I wanted to clarify what you're saying here. So I do really like the idea of working with Dorcas Ministries and working with them to help us subsidize people that could use help in using these programs. But so we would pay $30 per application, but then you're saying we would also pay whatever that subsidy is that was determined.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was my question.
So it will eat into the, yeah, it's like a credit. Like if, depending on what I qualify, for as a needed person, it would be a credit on my account.
Okay.
And, obviously somebody internal would be tracking and keeping up with all this.
So Dorcas is doing the calculation to determine what their subsidy
Yes.
is. And we're not doing that.
Yes.
Okay.
It
Can I
takes a big,
clarify
heavy.
on that, if I may, please?
Yes.
So with the program through Dorcas, so the direct cost to us is the application fee, and that's so they have the staff that would do the vetting, and that's their expertise, and they can help us figure out what the subsidy is between generally that 25 to 95% of the program cost. So where we say we're putting money in their account, it's not necessarily providing money to them. What we are doing is plussing up their balance so they can then register for a program. Where the cost is to us isn't anything direct. It's in not getting the revenue to that program at the 25 to 50 to 75 to 95%. So it doesn't. It's not like we're paying anything. It's we're just not getting the revenue we would get if someone was in that program that was not vetted by Dorcas to get a subsidy. And while we're talking about this as the Play It Forward program, which is kind of where it started, we see application in this concept really throughout the program offerings that we have. So we may be able to expand that with Dorcas to be able to serve folks that are in need in a variety of other programs as well.
All right, Councilmember Scroggins Johnson and Councilmember Rabati.
Thank you. I do appreciate the Play It Forward program from Dorcas. I think it is going to be helpful, and it gives less burden on the town of trying to develop its own program. So for $30, I think that's a good value for us. I think that would be great for working parents and those that are trying to prioritize quality of life. And this is definitely a very nice way of discreetly and privately, and giving them choice of what program would they prefer within the amount that was allocated based on their need. I would caution, though, culturally, our senior population is a very prideful generation, and they probably would not go to Dorcas unless there are extreme difficult circumstances, and they might. Most seniors are on fixed incomes, and I would consider them all vulnerable. And so I would not necessarily see pay it forward coming up a lot in their senior population, although it's open to them, of course. But that's why I keep pushing the fees down, because that way it allows some dignity and respect for our retired individuals or working individuals like myself that is eligible for programming. But I think my point is made. Thank you.
Some of my people are right in this room, too.
Councilmember
Minus
Abadi
him.
and then
He's
Mayor
not
Pro Tem
50.
Garavella.
Is he 55?
I just wanted to, I just want to ask a quick question, which is, so if a person is eligible, they, like Dorcas will do an initial assessment about whether they're eligible, and then we'll put some kind of flag on their account, and whenever they sign up for something, the discount will be applied. So like, we don't have to pay for it when they sign up for pickleball, and when they sign up for bingo, and when they sign up for line dancing, or like whatever the things are that they're signing up for. Okay, so then, yeah, so I mean, I think that makes it better, especially like if Dorcas comes to the senior center and is like, here, everybody put in an application. Great, if you're approved for something, great. If you're not, great. But I just want to make sure like we're not getting dinged for $30 every time somebody wants to do something in town, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. Okay, because that's going to add up.
To Dorcas.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Garavella.
On the previous slide, opportunities, just piggybacking what Steve is saying, if we can be a duct tape, when I say duct tape, we have so many places, like when I used to send my kid, he will have Thursdays, he will be going to like the museum, or we'll be going to different locations. So within Morrisville, we have so much, especially Macraman. We have the whole kids racetrack. What is it? I don't know all the names. Yeah, and all those things. These people can enjoy, spend a lot of time. You don't need space. What I'm trying to say is, if we can just be a collaborator with them, two things we will do. A, you're giving extra people, giving options for the families, and we will be at the epicenter of it. And two, giving businesses to these people who have a passion but are struggling because kids are not going. I think it will solve both, and it is not our liability because the parent has to drop at that location or this location, so we are off the hook. It's just I'm thinking all directions, because at first I thought take our bus, go from A to B, but you'll say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 locations, and they just go, and we collect the money. We could take whatever your administrative cost is, but you're giving businesses straight to them. Just a thought. And the other one, about the Dorcas ministry, can I get some data from Carrie as to what kind of people, I don't want to say what kind of people, where are the people applying towards? Is it going towards the seniors? Is it the families applying for the kids? Or those kind of things? I just want to know, and I also want to see what is their criteria, because I don't want it to be a black box. It goes to Dorcas and they determine. I want to know what they are really determining, so that at least on paper.
Like the demographics.
Yeah, and demographics too, yeah.
Mostly it's going towards summer camps.
Mhm.
It's mostly youth programming.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay, all right, that makes sense then. It's a high dollar.
Can I ask one quick question before we go off? This is a great idea. Is there criteria, like how, I don't want everybody to sign, fill out an application and we're paying $30 an application for folks that are never going to qualify. So is there criteria you share when we share this program with the public?
If I recall, the way that Carrie has it set up, it's basically if you're in need, if you need a community resource. And then from there, Dorcas takes over all the financial stuff.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but there must be some, criteria, like family criteria, income criteria. There must be something, because,
Not initially as the advertising for it.
Forward facing to the public.
Okay.
That shifted some time ago so that it was sensitivity is that here is this sponsorship program or a subsidy program. You have to come and apply and then you're vetted. It's not like if you meet this criteria on the front end, then you're eligible or
But
applicable.
that is not transparency there.
yeah.
I'll be
that's-
honest,
I-
that's not transparency. Because end of the day, I want to know what they are determining out of, because the town is subsidizing. They are just the liaison telling them what to do. But I need a white paper. I don't need data. Just I need a white paper on how they are doing it.
I think it's hard to define needs for people though. Like
No, I don't care about the needs. I'm not even going there. I'm
What
not,
are they doing? How are
what are
they
they
making
doing?
the determinations? Yeah.
oh, that's where they use their financial.
Okay, so that's what I want to know. That's,
Yeah, might be you don't know
What
the
do they
answer.
have to provide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you don't need, answer
Like
now,
you were
but
saying the tax documents or the.
no.
no, I don't care. Yeah. We're
You
on the
got it.
same
You
wavelength.
got it, whatever.
We'll add it to the FAQ.
Yeah.
We'll see if we
Okay.
can get
That's
that
all.
information
Okay.
from Dorcas and see if they can provide what criteria they use in
I
order
mean,
to
a,
make that
a
determination.
family of four that makes $150,000. I want to apply. Town of Morrisville will pay my $30. Are they going to qualify for something? I mean, you need to tell me what this is. Well, I agree.
But
that-
that's what I want.
If I may. So what they're doing is they're using the same criteria that they would use to determine affordable housing eligibility, food stamp type eligibility, federal program eligibility. It's those same kind of metrics. While we don't have the actual numbers they would use, we can try to get them from Dorcas, but it's kind of a comprehensive suite of looking at an individual's financial perspective. So how many kids, how many people in the home, what their income is, and if they fit these federal levels.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if we could share that, that'd be helpful.
Let's move on.
So what I envision, just during their usual intake, they have case managers and they interview the families and stuff like that. So this would be a box. Do you have children who might be able to use the town of Cary programs if they're a Cary resident or a Morrisville resident? So I think that's where it's going to start. That's where we're going to start having the people who are already in their system with needs. And then we can step up and sort of say, okay, if you have needs, if you need a scholarship for one of our programs, you're going to go through their intake system. So I think this is a great thing to get started. So I think all our answers are going to be kind of answered through the process as we go.
And I think we're beating a dead horse here, but I get it. But yes, sir.
So everyone's good with that? Sounds like we have consensus.
Mayor, you had asked if we could, bring it home as far as what are the ask of council. This slide does not have a question for you. It just redisplays that cost recovery where you're just evaluating the base budget. This was also in the January presentation. I displayed it a little bit differently. Also try to project this year where we had some increases in expenditures. That's why the percentage for the cost recovery currently is at 42%, and then we have a stretch goal for next year at 45%. And then if we'll advance to the next slide, it shows you what's built into why or how we could advance to the 45% in FY26. We are proposing an increase in the differential between resident and non-resident to be 40%, where currently it's 30%. That would play into it. We're having an increase of marketing for field rentals and bringing the practice pitches online. So we see an opportunity for new revenue through that path. And then also adding the addition of the Southern Lot Shelter. That's new revenue that currently was not captured. And then increasing in that visibility of rentals across the network of the department. We also anticipate to see additional revenue coming in. And then I had mentioned on a previous slide the opportunity to charge for our vendors at our special events. The Historic Christian Church.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
I have a question on this slide. Where would like a nonprofit that wants to hold a 5K race fit into this framework?
They would come in under our rental framework.
Okay, so they would want to maybe, I think we've had events at Senior Fort Community Center, so they'd want to rent the community center. Is that?
It depends on, again, just like we talked about the variability in municipalities. Whenever someone's putting on the road race, there's some variability in it too. How many people are they anticipating? What's the distance that they want to go? So it may be that it shifts to MCP and uses the Greenway. So this is a parallel intake with vetting through our department, but also going through this special event permit process.
Okay, so it doesn't fit nicely maybe into 45%. Is that what I'm hearing
There's
you?
still the rental fees if they rent a shelter and they rent a field. But it may be that they could be accommodated without having to have that rental. And then if that is a new revenue that we could capture, that revenue is captured through that special event permit process, just with the application fee. So there's the potential, if you're just thinking, what could comprise a new rental? We always are very successful with birthday parties. We're starting to see an interest from our elementary schools wanting to come and do like field days or end of school graduations. So there's some untapped marketing opportunities there. I do think you're hitting on something with the potential also for 5Ks or fundraiser walls.
Yeah, I mean, just seems like in the last couple of years I haven't been seeing them as much as we have had in the past, and I think I was just curious why. Is that related to shelter? Is available space not there? You know, is it lead time for programming? So I think it's important that we better understand the opportunities with community events and what costs are associated with those. I'd like to learn more about that and what time you need in order to do planning, because sometimes organizations don't really get their selves in line at a time, you know, more than a month, and you might need 3 months. But I'd like to lower some barriers and better understand the framework so that everyone can be successful. Thank you.
Councilmember Fender.
So I'm curious, what is the plan to increase the field rentals and the facility rentals?
Well, the plan there is that we've moved the registration to online. We've tried to automate it. So I'll just give you a snapshot of March. In March of last year, we had 10 rentals. With moving to automated for this year, we had 20 online rentals and 10 that was in person. So, you know, we're in a digital age and hoping that is an ease on the customer side so that they can go online and access that versus having to have that person-to-person contact. It doesn't take the person out of it because, to your point, there's some crosswalking that oftentimes the community is looking for too.
So the only thing, I don't know what we're increasing from and to, but I would be concerned about what our competition is too. So are you keeping an eye on that? I mean, you know, if you increase it and then we're above everybody else, then all of a sudden we start losing revenues. So I get it. I know that's really a fine balance, but so how are you managing that then? Tell me how that.
With the creation of what we're putting forth as far as the shelter reservation fees, market rate comparison, looking at our neighboring municipalities and what they're charging for their shelters, and making sure that the capacity is the same as ours. So then getting,
Yeah, apples to apples. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
And that's something that we do with all of our fees during the budget process. We ask
Okay.
departments to provide us with market rate analysis and do some sort of comparisons when they're looking at increasing fees in order to kind of make sure that we are in alignment with the rest of the area in order to make sure that we're still competitive.
That's
But
right, because you can go somewhere else easily around here if you want to, so, okay. And do we track how, when we are increasing our fees like this, are we tracking, like you just talked, Mary, about, how many in 1 month, but are we tracking them over a period of time to see how our fee structure is affecting our rentals?
We understand that will help you all understand, so we are incorporating that now.
Okay, okay.
I have a follow-up question. So I was looking at the history here, and so I noticed in fiscal year 24 is 45%, and then we went down to 42, and then our goal for fiscal year 26 get up to 45. So what happened? What was the anomaly, or what happened in fiscal year 24?
Expenses went up.
Okay, then why did we go down, or why you're projecting will decrease
I'm sorry,
percentage?
you said in FY 24?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah, why
Okay.
did that increase and then we
Okay,
decrease?
sorry. I jumped ahead to where we are this year. So whenever I joined Team Morrisville, with our fee structure, we did not have a differential between resident and non-resident. That got incorporated to have a differential of 30%. I do think that that was a contributing factor.
Okay.
And then also looking at the market has also increased around us, so increasing fees. And then whenever you have made valid points that we have an attraction to non-residents and our non-resident rates are higher, that helps our overall revenue capture also.
Then why did we decrease percentage?
For this year?
Yeah.
All right, so that's still yet to be determined. That is a projection, but that is where our expenses have risen and then our revenue has not been able to rise as in pace with how we increase our expenditures.
I
So just
see.
keep in mind, our staff, thank you, grew from a team of 18 to a team of 25, where we crossed a year now because we did that mid-year last year. But then when you add our 30 benefited staff, we are a department of 30 employees with benefits.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Mayor.
So just, I like everything I've seen. Just philosophically, I want our programs to be busting at the seams. I want participation is more valuable to me than cost recovery. So if we need to lower our fees a little bit to get more people there, I'd rather have that and then adjust and raise the fees a little bit more later in order to kind of control it or to do more cost recovery. I want to fill up the programs first, get our legs under us and keep on growing the programs, and then come at it the other way. So that's just my value proposition. Is that how?
Yeah, and I think there's probably a consensus across the board, and even from us too, that we want to see participation. I want to interject here that we have existing programming that has been in place for some time, and then with this methodology, we're trying to apply moving forward. And then in this research and discovery is this methodology at these target percentages where we need to be. And we need some more data. We need some more evaluation to really be able to report on our success. The piece is getting support around that fee methodology and those targets. So, any other questions? Oh, sorry.
I think your slide really talks for the participation that you showed. That's pretty good. You know, it's not that we are lacking participation, if I correctly. Can you go back to that slide? Yeah, this one. This one clearly shows the participation that we are no short of any, like line dancing, non-residents 19, 20. So I think,
Free program.
but it's okay. But it's that's still it's attracting people. So this is pretty good.
Yeah,
I
and
love this.
maybe some of you have had touch points at MAFC. Remember, all the programs are unique in which division they're coming out of and who their target is. And so that's where we go back to that basic level of service, wide community, coming back to that enhanced community and individual, and then coming up to that specialized individual. Number one, we want to be able to meet the participants and the residents where they are. We want them to know us. They want them to engage. We want to be the topic of conversation of where they're seeking out their recreation and leisure activities. And then we want to see that we have opportunities to continue to trend towards new things and continue to grow that base. So we appreciate that support of saying participation is our number one kind of guiding North Star.
Could you please repeat that question into your mic? I just ask a quick question. Where are we time-wise on this?
So we've been going for about 90 minutes. I think we have maybe 2 more slides to get through, if you all don't mind.
Okay.
Kind of powering through that. I know we have one more comment.
I'll wait till the end.
Are you sure? Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question,
Yes,
please? How unique are we compared to the other municipalities that we have an aquatics and fitness center? Because it seems like our center kind of plays the role of a YMCA in some respects. But Cary doesn't have anything like this, do we?
No.
Do they?
Look at the Cary YMCA.
Whenever the MAFC does a market rate comparison, they look at Smithfield, and then even with the Smithfield's facility, it's not the
Yeah,
same.
I would think that's not.
We have a
So-
state-of-the-art
Yeah.
natatorium and fitness center
Best pool.
that's provided through a recreation lens.
The best pool in the
So,
triangle.
hey, I'm not finished, Steve. None of the other municipalities in Wake County have anything like this?
Not where there's a fitness and a natatorium and stuff.
I think
That's
that
great that we have.
The closest one is probably
Smithfield,
besides Smithfield.
yeah, Smithfield Selma has one that's similar, but yeah, nothing in Wake County.
Yeah, nothing in
Oh.
Wake County.
That makes us pretty unique. Okay. I guess that was Captain Obvious. Okay.
Thank you for asking the question.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Gerber.
Yeah, one thing I can say, Donna, in terms of sustainability, when I went to have a tour, they have these cycling bikes that they're connected to the grid, and they gave power to the, put it back in the grid. That was pretty cool. I think you should advertise that, like when I saw it.
The treadmill and rowing machines.
That was pretty good, and good job on that.
All right, so as we are bringing it home, these are the 3 questions that we would like to have reactions, i.e. support from council, and that is, does council support the fee methodology? And what I'm asking you, and I apologize, I'm still a rookie at understanding all the detail that you all want. So what is missing here is basic, is the target is 10%, no, this is the right slide. Enhanced is 30%, specialized is 50%. And then does council support the fee differential increase moving from 30 to 40%? And does council support the cost recovery goal for FY26 to be at 45%? So I have a feeling that number 1, you may have some questions about those targets.
Target's fine, just you have the flexibility within each program to adjust and do your best.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, and then Councilmember Bender.
So I don't think I can necessarily say 45 versus 40% blanket is the cost recovery target, because as you proposed, some of those programs jump significantly. They're like 30% more, from year, 2024 to 2026. And when you look at them individually, the increase is very significant. I would like to have a better kind of view overall of the programs proposed from this year to next, and what percentage increase is that fee? Now, we do that normally on an annual basis with the budget review as a whole. I know we're focusing specifically on programming, but I need a little more processing time to say, is 45 the right amount? Now, looking at the increases that you'll need to do in order to meet the 45%. So it's not just, is 45% good? Because I know that there's increased staff. I know that there's increased raw material costs and other, food costs, things that you include in that recovery calculation. So if I set 45%, not knowing that the costs themselves have gone up, a certain percentage, then setting a rate at 45%, it possibly would cost burden the individual from year to year significantly.
May I respond? So I may not have articulated this, but if that's a goal of 45%, and then the method to get to the goal goes back to the basic, enhanced, and specialized, where that gets to what you're describing is to any new programming, what we would direct staff is 10% above base is how they would calculate the fee. So if there's a need there to guide us to look at, say, 5% versus 10%.
So I know how percentages work, but I'm concerned that the base is going up, and then I don't know what the base is. I want to know what the recommendation from year 1 to year 2 is. That's what the consumer sees. If your base is increasing significantly, and I suspect it is, they're not, they're seeing, okay, $10 this year and now $20 the next year because the base has increased. I think I need a little bit more information about the base to do that setting of the goal overall. I mean, what out of all our programs, is everything up 20%, 25%, and we should just kind of understand that as we set the target of 45% recovery. So I feel like I'm a little blind right now, not understanding what's going on behind the scenes that is the foundation of your formula.
Okay.
And that would help me understand better the impact and the benefit as well as the cost. So I'm more like 40% because I think the base has gone up significantly and it's going to be a significant jump to the consumer and our residents and our neighbors. But I don't know if 40% is right because I don't know what the base is. So, you see, that's just me. The council members, might feel differently. The spread in your categorization, I think, is a good framework. It helps you kind of balance, the type of activity with how you want to cost recover. But I'm just not ready to say 45% without knowing more information. Thank you.
Councilmember.
Yeah, so, well, let me speak to this first. So I'm supportive of your fee methodology. I think where some of us are having some angst or concern is the programs you may decide to be in the basic or enhanced or specialized. I got the feeling that we're concerned about seniors. We don't necessarily want them in the specialized or enhanced categories, and possibly like child care fees for the Ready, Set, Go. I think there was concern there about so I guess what I should just say is, in general, for me, I'm supportive of that methodology. I think there's some concern about how you apply that, what your philosophy is going to be for applying that methodology. I'll leave it with that. And I interpreted the last slide we were just talking about, this fiscal year 26 anticipated base budget cost recovery being 45%, was you're increasing it from what we expect this past year being, not necessarily by increasing the base percentage on existing programs, but by what you bulleted here: increase in field rentals, increase in shelter rentals.
And then new programming.
Okay, and new programming. So is that correct?
Yes, and because we always do ask the staff to do a market rate comparison for existing fees. We can't go back for those programs that are already established to apply this fee methodology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're moving forward with that. So you are correct that the fee methodology is applied to the new moving forward.
Okay. All right. Then, yeah, I'm supportive of using the goal of 45% of the base budget for your cost recovery.
You have your slide.
Any other comments? Mayor.
I know she'll beat me up, so I'm not worried about 40 or 45. I just want to know, your base, because one example was when you're getting the pickleball person to teach, you're putting cost of a staff. So, but we are not considering, from my understanding, any of FTEs as this one. It's coming under our regular. So just understanding that and like, what is that? Like, because honestly, like, you're showing 45, but not factoring the staff, indirectly will be almost 25% or less than that, 20%.
Let me, whenever I had the slide with the bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
that's the base budget. So everything that Parks is allocated, including full-time salaries and operations and our revenue. So this is the entire department revenue and expenditures, including full-time
FTEs too.
and benefits, everything. So that's just department-wide.
Okay, I think I'll allow this.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
But with a caveat about the seniors and other things that you have to smoothen out.
Okay, Mayor.
Yes, and kind of the caveat with the seniors and the childcare, the Let's Play thing, I would like that to not go up so much because we're really family friendly. So I'd be willing to subsidize that a little bit more to make sure that our families have a place for their children to go and enjoy. So we shouldn't try to cherry pick, but that's just a philosophical thing. The old and the young, I think, are where I'm concerned about where there might be excess needs. Although I really love the idea of serving our teen population a little bit more, and you guys are really leaning into that, so thank you.
Councilmember Rao.
I'm fine with the base recovery, and I'm okay with the 40%. I mean, I feel like, sometimes people are living on the Cary border close to Morrisville, and they're having to pay. They might live a mile down the road, and they're having to pay more. But I could see it being a way for us to help recoup our costs. One thing I would like to get eventually is, just curious as to when the Parks and Rec Department would make a final determination of moving our programs back in-house and what the cost would be. I'd like a comparison of with, these different sports, what it would be, how much revenue are we giving away by just, working with the contractor versus keeping it in-house, but then also addressing the cost. And so we can, that could be more revenue if we could have a good program like a pickleball, clinic or junior clinic. Maybe it's already done in-house. Same thing with tennis, and then other sports that I see in there. When will we have that information? Decision.
And let me get back to you on
Okay.
saying something.
All right, I'm just curious.
Anybody else? I kind of want to do a little wrap up for us if that's where we're at, but I don't want to get ahead of anybody. Okay, so I think what we've heard is that there is interest in making sure that we are ensuring services for our seniors, particularly our residents, when possible, even perhaps at no cost. And then there is a willingness to have a fee for non-resident seniors, given that they're not taxpayers, and that brings them to the level similar to what our residents are paying to participate in programming. I also think I heard that there was a level of willingness to consider a fee, an annual membership, if you will, at the senior center rather than an program by program by program fee. So I think that staff will be looking at that. And then outside of that, it sounded to me like there's a willingness to support the four different categories with the percentages, which allow Mary and her staff to have the flexibility to determine rates. And again, speaking to the base, again, I think the easiest way, and correct me if I'm wrong, to look at that is that's what it costs to put on the program. So, it's not, we don't decide the base per se. The base decides itself based on what the program is, what equipment do you use, what supplies do you use, what staff do you use. And so from there, that's when they're going to make that determination to place it in a category based on level of benefit to the individual, the group, the community. So that's what we're looking for, really, is that support from you, that's what you're willing to work with, which allows them to then do the implementation and determine those specific things so then a full panel can be shown to you when that work is done. So that's where we'd like to head with this moving forward. Okay.
Thank you. Can I just I'm just going to say one thing.
You can if you turn your mic on.
He keeps turning me off. Yes, I want to make sure, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly when it came, and I'm in agreement, because you and I have had this conversation a lot too, Brandon. I am in agreement at the senior center that non-residents probably should be paying something. And this idea of maybe an annual, so that, it's just one fee and they can attend everything and anything they want during the year. I want to be careful of how that fee is calculated, because just like we talked about how the seniors are an important population that we want to focus on, and our young children are an important population that we want to focus on. The senior community at the Morrisville Senior Center is a tight community. They're a community that have been together now for a long time, whether they're a resident or a non-resident, and they matter to each other. They not only do they see each other in that building, but they socialize outside of that building. So I want to be really careful that when we start this process of initiating a new fee for non-residents, which again I am not opposed to, that we do it very thoughtfully, and that we don't do some kind of massive cost recovery to them out the gate. I think it's really important that when we start something for the first time that we step lightly, and that we evaluate and we tweak as we go over time, and we see how it affects participation. And so I feel strongly about that. So I just, and I'm not telling you what to do, how to do it. I don't even know yet, but I'm just saying, be very thoughtful of that group up there.
Yes, thank you. And we have, I think, a lot of ideas around that.
Good.
Now that we have
Thank
this
you.
guidance that you're okay with proceeding in that direction. Again, not looking to try to make up all that money, all that cost recovery, trying to bring a little equity to it.
Yep.
The fact that you attend, you pay taxes here, someone that's a Cary resident doesn't, just want to have them a little bit of responsibility for the services they get, similar to their peers from Morrisville.
I agree.
Thank
I agree. And I think they would even acknowledge all of that, quite frankly. Right, the residents up there, the non-residents that participate, I think they would acknowledge all that too. But again, the details matter, right? So.
Yes.
I was just thinking, can both towns do reciprocating, like things that residents versus non-residents kind of a thing?
To use a John Letney term, danger, yes. Will Rogers.
We went down that road a couple of years ago, by the way.
That would be
yes,
very, very challenging.
I would tell you, keep moving. Next topic.
And that's not anything about Cary or us. It would be challenging to do because of different services and different philosophies, and I don't know that they would want to do that with us either, to be honest.
Yep. It was resounding.
Can you do that more often, Brandon?
If that keeps you happy, I will dance around the room.
Let us know more often. Danger.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
And then Mike.
The danger zone.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the seniors? I know that there's been a couple of comments about, zero charging for the seniors. However, we do have our trips and things of that nature. Is that something that you want zero charges for as well? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I don't know. I think you're getting a different feel. We are not saying 0, okay? If I am a senior, if I want to participate in all the programs, what does it take? And I really want to know, to run the program with paid programs, what's the cost of it? Because I'm not getting that cost. Once we get the cost, then equation becomes easy. Because are we talking about 15,000? Are we talking 20,000, 30,000? Because that's the amount of conversation we are having. That's not even worth it. At the end of the day, that's where we want.
You want to see the data behind all this.
Yeah, what are we going against? Like it's a drop in the bucket of the whole budget.
Yes. This now concludes the presentation of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources cost analysis. Yes. So next steps moves to implementation. Thank you for the support of the fee methodology. We will move forward, as someone has already mentioned, about the manager's message. There's also a policy that needs updating and should be presented before you. The last date on it was 2018. So staff will work on that to integrate this fee methodology. And then, as we've mentioned, what we're really proud of is our program guide, and that is where our fees are forward facing to the public, and we will also start to put the maximum number of participation that we have heard that too as being helpful. I know that some of you have asked us about opportunities for coming back in the future, and that will be determined as the manager sees and has more conversations, and we have opportunity to explore and implement.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well done, everybody.
Thank you.
I think we might take a 10-minute break. Looking over at staff, that'd be appropriate. Let's go ahead and reconvene right at 8:10, please. And the next item will be other revenue and special topics.
Do you need me to drive for you? Okay.
Yeah. See what Brandon wants to do.
Please.
Okay. So we're going to come back into session. Now we're going to pass it to Town Manager Zudema for Town of Morrisville other revenue and special topics. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick introduction. Byron will handle the majority of this for you. It's his area of expertise. I will speak to a few things with him and may help him answer a few questions. But tonight we're going to get into the revenues. You've asked us a few questions about that along the way, so we're going to give you some detail in areas that you sought information, and then Byron is going to really break down, where does the budget revenue come from. So we think that'll be a good reminder for the council, and it's a good information to share with our community members as we head into that. So Byron? No, we'll take questions as we go.
Yeah, we can take questions as we go. So yeah, just feel free to put your placards up, and we'll try and call on people as we see them coming up. All right, so as the manager stated, we're going to talk a little bit about revenues. We'll talk a little bit about some methodology and sensitivity associated with some of our revenues, and just kind of wrap up from there. So I'll try and keep it pretty high level, but definitely feel free to ask any questions if we need to dive any deeper. So moving on to our resource capacity, I know you saw this slide last time. We're going to go into this and also provide you with a little bit more detail surrounding some of the confusion that existed, just to try and answer some questions. So taking a look at this, our base budget revenue again is $57.9 million. Our base budget expenditures are $51.4, leading to a capacity of about $6.5 million. And as you see on the side, where those percentages are broken down here in our major revenue categories. Again, taking a look at the total requests we had coming in, $14.5 million in total requests. 5.9 of them are one-time requests, 8.6 of them are recurring requests. Of those recurring requests, about $3 million makes up our personnel requests for the year, including new positions as well. And then going into just kind of breaking down the details, I'll let the manager kind of break this down a little bit.
So again, just a little bit additional information, a little more detail from last time to sort of give you a good picture of where we're at going into FY26. So on the left-hand side is the expenditure breakdown. Again, we've got requests for $14.5 million, but from that, you want to take out the 2.4 that already comes from the fire apparatus reserve, or now the public safety reserve. And then, we typically do the 3.6 or have since last year done the full 3.6. That's your 3 full penny funds along with the $850,000 that goes into the public safety fund. So when you take that out, there's really 8.5 new actual requests for things we haven't done before. And then if you look at the right-hand side on your revenues, again, the projected base is at $57,900. That's still a little bit of a moving target. Not a big moving target, but as Byron continues to look at revenues and we look at our comfort level with certain things, again, we're balancing, right? Because we want to be conservative, particularly because some of our prior conversation around what's going on in the state and the country. But at the same time, there are areas that we still feel comfortable that we can anticipate a little more revenue to give us a little more capacity. So when you take out those base budget expenditures, again, it's $51.4 million, which is that 6.5 from the prior slides. And then again, we take out the committed reserves that we have to fund this year. And then we put in the $2.4 million that goes into the Public Safety Capital Reserve Fund. We're left with a capacity of $5,300,000 without any use of fund balance. So really, if you're looking at this, you've got the $8.5 million in new requests other than things we normally would fund. And then we have capacity to do 5.3. So that leaves us with about $3.2 million to do new requests, a 3.2 million gap between new requests and capacity. That capacity can grow to probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6.3, 6.5 when we influx or inject some fund balance use into there. As a reminder, we've done that consistently for years, and we have never spent that fund balance because we know we're going to have lapsed salary. We know we're going to have not spend everything on everything that's budgeted. So again, capacity right now is about 5.3, so a 3.2 gap. Probably a 2.2 gap if we bring in some of that fund balance, and we'll have more for you when we circle back with a recommended budget on that.
All right, so kind of taking a look at Sorry, I skipped a slide. Taking a look at some methodology for our revenues. You all have seen this slide before. This is basically just breaking down the capacity between where our revenues started in our base budget and where they ended up for the past 5 years, not including a projection for next fiscal year. So as you see, our capacity has continued to grow a little bit. The slide kind of represents where those capacities are increasing and decreasing and where ultimately our budget ended up. And as you notice, in 2025, we have a much larger capacity than we've had in previous years. That is due to the fact that we went through reevaluation this previous year, and we saw a very, very large jump in where our base budget was versus where we ended up after the reval. Taking a look at one-time expenditures, do just kind of want to point out that we do look at when we budget for the current fiscal year, and we do have those one-time those one-time requests that come in that we do fund. Those are requests that end up rolling off that next fiscal year, and that's additional capacity that we do have to be able to fund either additional one-time requests or other recurring requests as we go through that process. Most of those one-time requests are typically kind of capital outlay or transfers to other funds. And we do, it does make up about 8% of the total budget. So kind of going from 23 to 25, in 25 we had about almost $7.5 million worth of one-time requests. That's everything from natural growth to items that ended up being funded with fund balance, as well as other that increase in reserves that we saw in the current fiscal year. So I want to go into some of our major revenue categories, kind of give you a sense of how they grow, a sense of sort of what our collection rate looks like, what factors we can look to in order to help determine where our projections are going to go, what sensitivity we have, and we'll start with our property taxes. So property tax is not just our largest source of revenue, but it's also our most stable source of revenue. We bring in almost 100% of our planned revenue based on the assessed value, about 99.8%, which is really good. We go through the county in order to collect that, and the county does a great job of kind of helping enforce that with us. We do know that there are some things that impact ad valorem revenue. One being just real estate in general, the real estate market. That real estate market can constantly change. We know that we saw a major shift from last year to this year through reval, and all that kind of plays into where we see our revenues increase. We know that council has a lot of say over that revenue, being able to set a tax rate for the year. So obviously that sensitivity is a lot less than what we would see in some of our other revenues, because you all have the capacity and the capability to be able to change that and manipulate that, considering the fact that we have such a high collection rate. For this upcoming fiscal year, we are projecting about a 3% growth. That's still pretty conservative, but we do anticipate that kind of coming in at about 3%. Also do want to point out that there is going to be a change in the reval process. I know we spoke about that the last time. It's going to go from 4 years down to 3 years in the next cycle, down to 2 years in perpetuity from that point. We did hear you all, and we will work on trying to get Marcus, the tax assessor in Wake County, come and just give you a presentation. It'll probably be after or later in the budget process, just given their schedule and kind of what they're working on. But that is something that we will definitely work on in order to get him here for you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm a little concerned with this 2025 and 2026. If you look at the projection, are we tanking there? Like, because you look at 2022, 23, 24, and then a jump on 25, and then almost kind of flattening there. So what does that mean? Like, we are not growing at the pace of 3% or 4% at that time?
So the graph itself, just given the how would you say it, the proportions of it, it does make it look a little misleading. That large jump from 24 to 25 is due to reval. So almost the majority of that increase there, you see the kind of slow growth from 23 to 24. Our natural growth would continue along that same trajectory, which is what you see in 25 and 26. However, the large jump is due to reval. So we're kind of going from one, jumping up, going from another. In the next reval, if we see any sort of a significant jump, we should see kind of jumps along those lines. So it is something that we're factoring in there.
So what is the growth rate in the next 3 years that you see? Is it 3%, 4%, or is it still continue the same way? Or
So that's definitely something that I can bring back, kind of an expanded projection for you all to get a better sense of kind of where we see. Typically, I would say about 3% is a pretty standard, pretty conservative growth rate for your ad valorem taxes. Obviously, that's something that we're kind of taking a look at because of the nature of the real estate market. If there is a shift in, say, if we do have a recession, if we see a lot of issues when it comes to, either
yeah, no,
the
no,
housing market
I'm not
changing,
even going there.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying is we're pretty much built out. So I want to see where it's tanking, like it's not, those fluctuations are fine.
and that's definitely something that we can bring back.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, so moving on to sales tax. Sales tax is our second largest source of revenue, almost 20% of our general fund revenues. That is a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more volatile at times, just due to the fact that sales tax is based upon, sales within the area, and the fact that those sales can kind of fluctuate depending on how the economy is doing, whether or not there's some inflationary concerns, whether or not there's just going along with those inflationary concerns, if there are just changes in just the overall discretionary income that we see with our residents. With that being said, we also know that the state is the source of that collection method, and we don't necessarily have that same proprietary data that we do in some of our other revenue sources. So we are a little bit at the mercy of the state of North Carolina when it comes to projecting what it is that we can expect with our sales tax on an annual basis. Also keep in mind that our sales tax has a tendency to be a lagging indicator when it comes to the fact that we collect 3 months in arrears. The sales actually happen in 1 month, and 3 months later, that's when we see that revenue. So we're always kind of cognizant of the fact that we have to be mindful, knowing that that revenue that we're anticipating isn't going to actually realize until a few months later. Councilmember Al, do you have a question? No, go for it.
Fire away.
Excuse me. I want to go to under the sales tax. It says impacted by local economic growth, Great Recession, COVID, all that. I've been hearing from even some small businesses here that, well, it's going to change now because he's waived the Trump administration's gone back to 10%, but based on the tariffs that were put in, they were already suspecting 25% increase in their costs because of their imports. So if those things go into effect, what is the danger of that 18.5% going down, faster than we think? And I know I'm not an economist either, but is this something that we're monitoring?
It's definitely something that we're concerned about. It's something that we are continuously monitoring. It's something that not just our municipality and staff here, but staff across the state and other municipalities within the county, and the state itself, and other state partners, other agencies such as the League of Municipalities and other resources like that are all looking at this particular source of revenue that impacts everyone across the state.
Yeah, I mean, if the cost goes up to such a point that then people just quit. We hit a recession, and then people quit buying, and then sales tax just plummet down. And that's, sorry.
So I was actually with a couple of manager peers this afternoon, and we were discussing this, and I think everybody is along a similar line of just crawling very slowly into this year, not planning, being very conservative in projections. And then once we get through your revenue sources, we're going to share some information with you about how we're going to approach this budget to prepare for a worst case scenario if sales tax dropped considerably or if something else occurred that limited revenues, what we're going to do to balance that over the course of the full fiscal year.
I don't want to sound different, but is there a possibility our economic development person can get something like a Costco or some big retailer into town? The reason I say that is Costco in Apex makes a sale of close to $6 to $7 million a day. So count the amount of money that is almost $1.6 billion of revenue that they generate, and I don't know how much tax that comes out of it. It's a solid money. So like now Nordstrom Rack, okay, people will buy. So we had to start looking at that point of view because people will go no matter what the economy is to Costco.
Armin, would you talk to them a little bit or explain a little bit about the methodology behind the distribution of all sales tax in Wake County and how it applies to all municipalities in Wake County, proportion share?
Yeah, so.
It's population based.
Yeah, so the state does provide a total amount of sales tax within the county. However, we are distributed based on proportion. So even though we know what the total sales tax within the county, or the total gross sales within the county should be, and could go through the process of kind of analyzing that and figuring out what that proportion can be for our municipality, it's not a perfect science. So we don't actually have the data specific to revenue, or specific to Morrisville. So it's a little bit hard to go through and kind of take a look at where the entire county sits and where Morrisville sits and be able to glean individual pieces of data from there.
Is it population based?
That's
what I heard is population based.
So general information is published, but specific information to say target is proprietary. And I think the key point that I want emphasized here is any economic growth in Wake County, we get our proportion share of. So it's not just things that come to Morrisville. So if Cary grows in their economic development of commercial, or people can go and shop and buy things, our proportion share can also increase because we get a piece of the whole pie.
Okay. Then keep the Costco there.
Yeah,
because
we benefit from Costco,
we don't,
right?
yeah.
I mean, if you bring them here, you would benefit from ad valorem
Too much traffic.
and what they put in there, but bringing them from a sales tax perspective
Okay, I was
doesn't
under
help us
the-
any more here than if it's somewhere else.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Shop in Wake County, not
fair.
Durham County.
So I do want to point out that sales tax had traditionally grown in the past few years, roughly about 4 to 5% each year, even a little bit higher at times. Obviously, the economy at times was booming. We are looking at trying to be a lot more conservative with our projection this year, just due to the fact that we know that there is some economic uncertainty that exists within the nation. So our projection is actually only about 2.25% for 2026, which is a lot more conservative than what we've traditionally seen. However, it is something that we're going to continue to monitor in order to make sure that we come up with the most accurate projection that we can have when it comes time to approving the budget. So taking a look at our next source of revenue, our utilities franchise tax, it only makes up about 4% of our total revenues. However, that's still a pretty significant amount when looking at the rest of our revenue sources. Do want to point out that this is a sales tax on electricity and pipe natural gas. So while we do see some changes in our other sales tax, our regular sales tax, this also is affected in similar ways, especially considering the fact that as utility bills increase, both from changes in rates as well as changes in weather, everything from it being overly warm in the summer to overly cold in the winter, that increases this amount of sales tax that we receive because of the fact that there is more energy usage within the community. However, do want to point out that there is a little bit of an inverse relationship. As utility bills go up, that means there's less discretionary income that an individual would have. So that means that while our utilities franchise tax might go up a little bit, our sales tax might come down a little bit, just kind of as a baseline anecdotal. As I stated a minute ago, because we don't have that raw data for this particular area, we can't come up with a complete one-to-one ratio for that. But we have some pretty good anecdotal ideas about the fact that that does happen. Do also want to point out that that's not just revenue coming in, that's also an increase in utilities expenses for the town as well. So while we see that revenue increase, we do see some correlation to an expense increase as well, because our utilities also go up, and that's another factor that we play into this. This is a little bit more volatile than some of our other revenues, sales tax in particular, and obviously ad valorem tax. And we do see a little bit of fluctuation, mainly because I talked about the weather factoring in that. When we have more mild winters and more mild summers, we see that number go down a little bit. When we have very harsh winters and summers, we see that number go up. This past year, that's an example of it increasing quite a bit. So we see the fact that for 25, we're projecting almost $2.65 million worth of utilities franchise tax coming in for this year. That is very high compared to what we've traditionally seen. And we do anticipate there being some regression back down to where the mean sort of is. So we have that projection at 18%, an 18% projected decrease for fiscal year 26, but that's only because of the fact that we saw such a gigantic jump last year, and we don't anticipate seeing that again. We are being somewhat conservative. Councilmember Fender.
Is the sales tax rate the same on utilities as it is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, so moving on to our development fees. Our development fees make up about 3% of our total revenues. This also is a revenue source that fluctuates quite rapidly in each individual year, and that's just due to the fact that development is not the same and consistently increasing year over year over year. We know that there are some times where some of our development fees are going to be higher because there are projects getting ready to come online, and then we'll drop down because of the fact that those projects have been completed, and now we're seeing a representation of that in our assessed value. As I said just a second ago, with that being said, this is a little bit of a lagging indicator of our assessed value. When we see our development fees go up, we know that in subsequent years we should see an increase in our assessed value, which increases our ad valorem taxes. All this is kind of connected. Do want to point out that we are projecting about a 6% decrease in fiscal year 26, and that is due to the fact that we anticipate having a little bit less development than we've had in the past couple of years. Councilmember Rao. Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were raising your hand. I'm sorry about that. All right. And then obviously this is affected by our national economic climate. We know that development tends to slow down when economic conditions are not ripe for them to continue to increase. So that's also playing into the fact that we're being a little bit more conservative in this projection as well. Moving on to Parks and Rec fees, won't dive in too much with this. Do just want to point out that right now our projection is based on where current operations are. So it is not factoring in for our fiscal year 26 projection the changes that you all talked about. That is something that we will be bringing back to you. We will see some increases there and some changes due to the fact that you all talked about, some level of appetite for changing the structure of our cost analysis, and that is something that you'll see soon. However, do just want to point out that that is a little bit of a sensitive source of revenue as well, just due to the fact that our just like I spoke with the utilities franchise tax, weather plays into this, participation plays into it. All of those things play into the fact that this revenue is built around participation. And if we don't have the ideal scenarios in order to increase that participation, that does drive down that revenue. However, when times are really good and we have lots of participation, we have lots of programming, that revenue does increase. But there is some offsetting expenses that go into that. And obviously, you all talked about that. I won't dwell anymore on Parks and Rec for the night for you all. As I said, it's flat for right now just due to the fact that we did not want to put those increases in before you all approved those fee changes. All right, taking a look at our interest income, makes up about 1.5% of our revenue. It is a very volatile source, as you all can imagine, because it is contingent upon interest rates. And as we know, as interest rates change, we see changes in our interest income. I want to point out one thing, and that is what is in bold here, an acronym known as SLI, and that is safety, liquidity, and yield. When we're looking at interest income, our number one concern is the safety of our investment. So we make sure that we don't invest in things like crazy stocks, cryptocurrency, futures, all that type of stuff. None of that not only is it not allowed, we have no intention of doing any of that. Our second concern is liquidity, being able to get to the funds that we have in our investments on a timely basis, try and keep it within 24 hours of being able to receive that money as liquid cash. And then lastly is yield. Seeing those interest rates increase, that's our last concern, because our number one concern is making sure that we have a solid investment for the town's resources and not put it into anything that has the ability to see massive, massive losses. So we do see some kind of small gains. Right now, you see some massive increases just due to the fact that we've seen some major shifts in interest rates over the past few years. We're anticipating right now a 25% decrease because we are projecting a potential for an increase, or excuse me, a decrease in interest rates in the upcoming year. And we would anticipate that affecting what we see in interest for our investments. And then lastly, I just want to talk about some other fees. This makes up about 6% of our total budget when it comes to revenue. This is everything from our motor vehicle fees, the $30 that you will pay in order to get your car registered, our Wake County fire tax, an agreement that brings in about $1 million, beer and wine and ABC revenue brings in almost $500,000, our video programming and our telecommunications fees that's collected by the state at the same time as our utilities franchise tax, bless you, and that brings in a little bit more than $500,000. And then also want to point out our tower leases. Tower leases are, contractual arrangements that we do have, and those are also stable. Excuse me. We see a lot of these revenues are a little bit more stable just due to the fact that they do have some contractual obligations associated with them. And so we can, factor that in. However, it does only make up about 6% of our revenue. So moving on, we are going to talk a little bit about, the grant funding that we do have. I'll speak specifically to federal grants and to state and local grants. And definitely, if manager, if you feel like jumping in at any point, definitely. So first, I just want to briefly talk about our federal grant funding. These are grants that, as it's in the name, originate from the federal government. In some cases, they are passed through other agencies, such as the state of North Carolina, but ultimately the source of the revenue is the federal government. As of right now, we don't have any indication that the current appropriations that we've received, the grants that we've been approved for and funding that we've actually received or have the ability to submit for reimbursement are going away in any sort of way. Don't have any major changes. That's not just from the grant agencies, but also from some of our lobbying agencies within the state that work on our behalf, such as the League of Municipalities, but also just from all of our contacts, no one is giving us any sort of indication that a lot of those federal sources are going away. However, we are still monitoring other resources that we have not necessarily received. In some cases, there might be a little bit of change, or we might have to go through some additional hoops. But as of right now, we're still continuing on monitoring those grant processes, still going through the application processes, because of the fact that we are still looking to gather as many federal resources, as many grant resources as we can in order to offset the other needs of the town.
And two quick notes, and then also once we get through these, we'll quickly show you on the screen where we do have specific funding, just so you're aware of what that is. It is in the FAQ document. We'll just pop it up for a minute. But I would say two quick things. One, from a federal earmark, you know that they did not fund federal earmarks this current year because of a variety of reasons, primarily the continuing of the budget not being approved, but just got notification today from Congresswoman Fushi's office that they are reopening for next year for community funding. So that will let us reapply for the town center funding that we requested last year. We'll ask for the $1 million again. I'm also working with Congresswoman Ross's office. So Houston Wallace is who we dealt with last year on this, because last year town center was in Congresswoman Ross's district. And this year, that shifted 2 blocks, which means now we're in Congresswoman Fushi's district for town center. But Houston had indicated there could be a possibility of a co-sponsored request between the 2 congresswomen. So I was emailing today and trying to set up a call for that. That would, I would think, hopefully improve our chances because this was funded last year primarily out of Congresswoman Ross's office, but we'll want to work with Representative Fushi. So once we make that ask, we'll certainly be sharing that with you for some outreach as well to share how important that request is for the town. The other thing I would just mention is we are fortunate in a sense that we don't get some of the bigger federal funding. The bigger amounts we typically are related to transportation, and that's usually pass-through money. The meeting I was in today was talking with the manager from Hillsborough, and they do manage a water system, and so they just got notified that their BRICS grant, which funds that sort of infrastructure, got canceled. And we're talking millions of dollars that they were counting on. So he's rapidly scrambling, I believe, and I mean that in a positive way, but they have to figure that out now. So we're fortunate in that sense in terms of where we do get federal funding from.
Okay, so let's see if I can flip around here. So this is.
Zoom in on this for the top portion, please.
Are you got it, Jamie? Okay.
Yeah, it is in your FAQ if you have that with you. But yeah, that's better for my old eyes.
Hey, have we ever put together like a trend chart of our grants over the years? I don't think I've ever seen one.
I don't.
Be interested.
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
Because we should increase applying for grants.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think with Dawn and the grants team and through our partnership with Central Pines COG, we've absolutely increased that. Again, you happen to have an employee in the police department that loves a grant. So Lieutenant Allman has gotten a number of grants for the police department. So I think that's all good news.
See what the trend is over the past 5 or 10 years.
Sure.
Might be something good to show the public as well.
Yep, we can certainly do that. The other thing I'll mention is that we are currently working with staff to potentially ask for a Part-If grant to also support the town center. So that would be a $500,000 grant. You recall that we had a grant previously. We had to turn it back. Not an easy thing to do, but collective decision. So we feel like we're in a good position. The way that they score, that the town center we expect would score very high because of the different components all in one place. So we're working on how to do that right now. Dawn and I have been having a little conversation, as have others, about the best way to get that done. It's a pretty quick turnaround time, but we're working to get that done. And then we'll also get our request in. I think we have less than 2 weeks to do the community funding, as that usually happens. You get notice and congratulations, you can apply, but you got to have it done in like 14 days. So.
Did they misspell? I'm sure it was that. Well, that's what I was wondering.
No, that's a misspelling. That's the
What-
French version, amateur.
So what's the time frame or time span? It says provided in January. So is this just 6 months from July of last year to January?
So, yes, this is current fiscal year, and these are the grants that we have been awarded, as well as the ones that we've either submitted or are currently under review. So this is a current snapshot of kind of where we sit right now with our grant funding.
And what you see on the screen is just a little bit of an update. Since that grant picture was even put together, there's been additional work and additional awards. So continuing to seek out money.
No, not currently.
None of these are, and these are all of them, and none of these are in jeopardy
Correct.
that you're aware of today.
Yeah, you want to scroll down real quickly, Jamie? Or, I'm sorry, scroll down. Yeah, obviously the $1 million in community project funding, that one is, but everything else, either where it's ongoing, or either it's already been awarded, or it's already been submitted, and is ongoing, or it's, in review right now. So nothing has, either we have received it and it's all good to go, nothing has changed, or we're awaiting to find out whether or not we're going to receive it, or we've submitted an application and are currently waiting for that.
And so how much of that are we currently waiting for that we don't have in hand? I'd like to, what do we have in hand that's ours that hopefully
So
they
the
won't claw
awarded-
back?